This is a waterfall. I love to travel to places like Mexico that have the most incredibly beautiful places you can visit. But places like this actually don't have addresses very often, and they're very hard to find. And I also like to use Airbnb. And Airbnb increasingly has beautiful, incredibly exciting, unique adventures. And yet, if I'm staying in one of these cabins, it's quite unlikely it's going to have an address. And my Airbnb host and I are probably going to have a confusing conversation across different languages while I try and find them. Or maybe I want to tell you where the best street art is in Berlin. So Berlin has some of the most incredible street art in the world as far as I'm concerned. But it's really hard for me to tell somebody the exact location of the wall where that incredible mural is. And if anyone's been to a festival, you will understand why addresses don't work. You will have got lost, you will have tried to find food or the band or your friends, and it would have been really complicated, and you will have ended up getting very frustrated and possibly even losing your tent. I am a coffee addict, and this is also a problem for me in London when I'm trying to tell people where the best street coffee is in London, because there are some great places, but they don't always have addresses. So it's always very, very hard to find them. And one of the reasons that addresses are so poor is that they haven't really changed in a long time. So maps look pretty different today. This is what maps used to look like. Now they look more like something on your phone, something in your car, maybe even something on your smartwatch. They don't look very much like this anymore. And yet addressing systems haven't really changed in hundreds of years. Nobody's really done much with addresses. We've kind of kept them the same. They were designed for postal services. Not much has happened with them. And the problem with that is that these addressing systems that were designed for mail sorting, for finding your way around, were not designed for machines. So mostly what we do with addresses these days is we type them into machines. So I might be typing them into my phone, I might be putting them into my car, more and more I'm even using voice, and addresses just weren't designed for that. And what that means is that you end up with a problem, which is that it's really easy for human beings to make mistakes with addresses, and it's really hard for machines to spot those mistakes. Like this, for example. If I make a typo when I'm typing this in and I get one letter wrong, it's very easy for me to end up in the wrong side of town, in the wrong place. As discovered by an American tourist who was in Iceland, he became quite famous on the BBC because he drove 5 hours to the wrong side of Iceland because he missed out an R in the middle of a word. So he didn't speak Icelandic, he didn't know he'd made a mistake, he typed it into his GPS, he trusted his GPS, and he drove to the wrong side of Iceland. I think they welcomed him and he had quite an adventure, but it certainly wasn't the adventure he had in mind. And it's not just the case when you're traveling. In Germany, recently, I spent a lot of time in places like Stuttgart, and recently I was staying in an Airbnb, and I discovered with my taxi driver that there are two places called Klinigerstraße, very close together in Stuttgart. And we showed up and surprised somebody who was not expecting an Airbnb guest. And we then had to find our way back again. So that was kind of frustrating. And it's not just Germany. In London, you've got 14 roads called Church Road. So if you type that into your sat-nav in your car, good luck knowing which church road you're visiting your friend at. And in Mexico, you've got 632 Juarez streets. Mexico City is a beautiful city, but 632 Juarez streets is quite a few. So these are problems that are frustrating when we're typing. How much more frustrating are they when you're speaking? So these were not designed for voice. Addresses were absolutely not designed with voice in mind. And now we're starting to talk to our cars, we're starting to talk to our Alexa Echoes, our Google Homes, and yet they often, when we're giving them addresses, can't understand us. There are two problems here. So I call this the Ammanford Road problem. One, 50 and 15 sound very similar. They sound very similar and they're very close together, so it's easy to make a mistake. The other problem is this word Ammanford. Now, Ammanford is a very poetic word. It's also a made-up word. It's not in the dictionary. So it means you have to train voice recognition systems to recognize all the made-up words we use to make our addresses. Ammanford Road, Lonsdale Road, Pushkinstraße if you're in Germany. So this is a real problem because you have to basically program into anything that's using voice hundreds of thousands and eventually millions as you go across the world of street addresses. In Germany alone, there are 400,000 unique street names you have to program into your voice recognizer. So that's frustrating. And then, of course, if you go abroad, the addressing system changes again. Say you've got used to using the UK addressing system, and then you go to Japan on holiday to visit this beautiful country, you're probably going to get lost at some point. So addresses are annoying, they're frustrating, and sometimes even if you do have an address, so it's not a waterfall, maybe you're visiting a department store, it has an address, it's in Google, you said it and it worked and it went in correctly, and then you get a pin in the middle of the building. And there are 4 entrances, and you don't know which one you're going to. So addresses just aren't really working. And it's not just me. Consumers love to tell us what's wrong. And if you look on Twitter, there are people all over the world telling us what's wrong with addresses. They're complaining to Uber and Airbnb and Deliveroo. And to be honest, it's actually not the fault of Uber, because it's the addressing system that's to blame. And it's not the fault of Pizza Hut that your pizza is cold because the driver got lost. It's because the addressing system just isn't good enough. And this is a problem today, and it's certainly a problem tomorrow. So when you think about autonomous vehicles, when you think about drones and driverless cars, right now, if I get an Uber and the driver can't find me, we phone each other, and I say, can you see the Starbucks? What can you see? Eventually, we find our way to each other. Or if we're in the car and we're going to the wrong place, I say, sorry, just keep going. It's the place on the left with the red door. If you take that driver out and you have no driver, because you have a robot driving you, you can't phone the robot and say, can you see the Starbucks? So as we think about autonomy, it becomes even more important that addresses are better. So we decided there should be an addressing system for the world. And it turns out there is one. And it's GPS coordinates. So these are fantastic. They're unique. The whole world uses the same system. It's really great because you can find anywhere in the world. The problem is, nobody ever said to me, Claire, let's meet for a drink at 25 degrees, 9 minutes, 40.918 seconds, etc. So we wanted to take this and make it workable for human beings. So we divided the entire world into a grid of 57 trillion squares. We labeled each of these squares with a totally unique address made of 3 words from the dictionary. So this square is 3 meters by 3 meters. It's very, very small, 10 foot by 10 foot if you're American. And every one of those squares has a unique address. So table, chair, spoon, there's only one of those anywhere in the world. You can find the front door of our office in London by going to Index Home Raft. Totally unique. If I tell you to come there, you will not end up anywhere else in the world. So if you're asking Amazon to deliver to you in the middle of the countryside in Alaska, if you're trying to find somebody at a particular entrance to a stadium, you have an address. Now, these words don't have any meaning. They're random. They don't mean anything. Your house, it was no reflection on your house if it's called banana, banana, banana. There's no meaning, but we have done a few things to intelligently distribute. So what we did is we put similar combinations really far apart. And this is to make sure that it's OK if you make a mistake. So when you say to me, hi, Claire, I'm having a party at Table Chair Lamps, and it's on the phone, or I make a mistake when I'm typing it in, if I put in Table Chair Lamp, that's in Australia. And the other one is in the US. So I know immediately that I've made a mistake. It's quite unusual that you get on a plane and fly to Australia when you're meant to be going to the US. So that's one thing we did. The other thing we did is we put the more common words in places where people live. So you look in New York, you've got Table Chair Lamps. If you look in the middle of the sea, you've got Curiosity Peach Deconstructs. So the more common words go where people live and are going to use them. And all of this means that you can have instant error detection. So if I am typing in an address and I make a mistake, like here I missed off the first letter, when I was doing this, I was in London, so it knew I meant toffee branch pyramid, not coffee branch pyramid, because I was in London. So your error detection is instant, so you always know you're going to the right place. And we've done it in other languages too. So if you are trying to meet for a date on a park bench in Berlin, you've got 3-word addresses in German. You also have 3-word addresses in English and Russian and Arabic and Swahili and a few other languages, and we've got lots more on the way. So every square in the world has a GPS coordinate, a 3-word address in English, a 3-word address in all those other languages. So you really have no excuse for getting lost ever again. And what's happening technically is it's really just an algorithm that's converting 3 words into GPS coordinates, so you can use them in your machine. Once it's inside a machine, fantastic. Machines are great at using GPS coordinates. They'll pass them between each other, no problem. It's just a human-friendly way of inputting it. Right now, you can look up your address. You probably have a few, unless you live in a 3-meter by 3-meter house. You can choose the one you like the best that's near your front door. So we have an app. You can download it anywhere in the world. It works offline, and it is available everywhere. So right now, you can download the app, look up the 3-word address of your front door, or maybe your tree house, or the drone landing pad in your back garden. So everywhere in the world has an address. And we're used all over the place by all kinds of different companies, which has been fantastic for us, and it's been a fascinating journey. In Germany, in fact, if you go to the Deutsche Bahn HQ in Berlin, you will see they've got the 3-word address in German of their door to make sure that you come to the right door. So that's written on the front door. So if you go to Berlin, go and visit them at Potsdamer Platz, that's the exact 3-word address in German. we used to make deliveries, so you can order online using a 3-word address. Give them that 3-word address so they know exactly where your door is, and you get your clothes faster. We're used in the Caribbean by Domino's to make sure that pizza is delivered nice and hot and on time. We actually did a test recently in London. So we believe that these addresses are very powerful because they're much more accurate. So we did a race. Our 2 drivers from one of our partners, QuickUp, raced 3-word addresses against traditional old-fashioned addresses, and they found that 3-word addresses were quite significantly faster. So it meant that one of our drivers had a wonderful day. He finished his job early. He didn't have to phone the customers at all. And the other driver, as usual, had to phone quite a few of the customers and say, sorry, I can't find the entrance to the BBC building because there are 7 of them. Which one should I be coming to? We're also used in travel guides. So my mum's family is from Ireland, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's got lots of beautiful rural areas. Now, if I wanted to tell you the best surfing spot, if you like cold water surfing, I can send you a travel guide. So there are printed travel guides that are given out in Ireland with 3-word addresses on, so you know where you're going. Hosts and hospitality type businesses are listing 3-word addresses on things like TripAdvisor. So if you want to visit the Earth Lodge in Guatemala, you go to Rums Juggles Adoring. So you can always find your way. Similarly, Airbnb hosts are starting to use them to make sure you can find that door. One of the things I love is seeing people on Instagram. When they take a beautiful photo and they're very proud of it, and they want to share with you where they took that photo, they tag it with a 3-word address so that you too can go and explore those beautiful places or find the best coffee or see a beautiful tower or a hidden cabin in the woods. So this is all very exciting, and 3-word addresses are being used, but what do you do with them? If somebody says to you, hi Claire, meet me today for a picnic at Apple Banana Spoon, what do I do with that address? One thing I can do is type it into the app. So the app is free and you can type it in there and get directions. The other exciting thing that's happened recently is that you can start to use it in your car. So Mercedes-Benz was actually the first car company anywhere in the world to bring this into the vehicle. So in 2018, in your new Mercedes, you'll be able to get into the car, press that voice button on the steering wheel, say a 3-word address, know it will get you to the right place, and navigate to that exact 3-meter square. Just as you would any other address in your car, except this one's going to get you to the right place, and you're not going to make any mistakes. So that's big, and that's very exciting for us, because it means that people are starting to use these all over the world. And you can use it, of course, in other languages as well. So that's been a really exciting moment for us to see that these are being brought into cars, into vehicles, so people can use them however they like all over the world. We're also used with things like drones. So here's an example. This
artist.
Location. Public warns artist.
What 3 words enabled me to route my drone in a way that GPS couldn't allow? I was using just 3 words to send my drone to a unique, precise location. There was like a facepalm moment where I was just like, of course.
So it's pretty exciting to use a drone with your voice to go and take a beautiful photograph of a shipwreck, but there are also times when that's more critical. So if you think after a disaster, which is quite topical at the moment, you may not have street names. You may not have data connection. It may be very hard to share pins because you don't have any data. You may find it really difficult to describe where you are, where the emergency services should be going. 3-word addresses work offline, and they're used by aid agencies. So we're used in things like hurricane recovery by some incredible NGOs that do both recovery during the disasters and afterwards. They're helping people rebuild communities, and they're using 3-word addresses to communicate. We're used by the United Nations and their disaster reporting app to make sure that you can communicate quickly where aid is needed. And these things are very critical, but it's not just about after a disaster. And it's also not just about making sure your pizza gets to you on time, your Uber driver takes you to the right place. It's also about something much bigger. So the world's slum population is looking to reach 889 million by 2020. And if you look even further ahead, by 2050, 70% of the world's population is expected to live in urban areas. Now, addresses, they are just not keeping up. And what this means is actually 75% of the world has inadequate, poor, or no addressing systems. So for these people who live in these places, this is not about getting your pizza on time, or at least it's not always about getting your pizza on time. There are lots of other problems, and this is what this looks like. So this is a pin on a Google map. There's not very much happening here. If I switch to satellite mode, all those people live there. All those people who don't appear on a map. Sometimes they do appear on a map if there are streets, but unfortunately you have things like this, unnamed road. So yes, you can get a map from a satellite, but you can't get street names from a satellite, because if they don't exist, you can't project them from a satellite. So this is a real problem. And for the 4 billion people who live without an address, this is a very serious problem. It might mean you cannot register to vote. It might mean you cannot tell the emergency services where to find you. If you're in labour and you need an ambulance to come to you, how do you explain where you live if you don't have an address? There are so many things. You may not be able to register a business or even start a business if you don't have an address. So we are working with NGOs all over the world. They use our technology. They go out in the field and they do amazing things. This is Farm Strong, an NGO that works in Côte d'Ivoire, and they visit homes. They literally visit homes. They give them a sign. So this is in French because that's the language of the country. They give them the first ever address that these people have had, and it enables them to talk to each other. It enables them to talk to government, to advocate for their rights. It means they can get microfinance. There are all kinds of things you can do when you have an address that you couldn't do before. And we've seen in the last year 7 countries have adopted What 3 Words as an official addressing system. So these include countries like Nigeria, Djibouti, Côte d'Ivoire, and a few others, which has been an incredible thing to see because it means suddenly people who have never, ever had an address have a way to talk about where they live. And if you go to Tonga, you can see this tuk-tuk driving around, encouraging people to discover their 3-word address and use it when they send mail. So I'm just going to do a quick detour to Mongolia. This is an incredible country. It's one of the most amazing places I've ever been, and I would highly recommend it if anyone hasn't been there. Mongolia was the first country to adopt 3-word addresses as part of its national infrastructure. So you can see here, the Post, so the Postal Service of Mongolia, is able to visit homes, give people stickers with their 3-word addresses on, because the addresses never change. So even if you don't have a smartphone, if someone can give you a sticker and it has your address on, you can use that address until you move house. So it's really, really powerful. So they can visit them. So people are starting to write it on letters. You can see those 3 slashes at the bottom. That's our sign. Those 3 slashes mean this is a 3-word address coming. So they can write it on letters. The government uses it to communicate about things like health centres. So they can tell you where your hospital is. They can tell you where the water point is, where the recycling point is. If you're a tourist and you're visiting, which you should do, you can see in all the tourist guides of Ulaanbaatar, the capital city, 3-word addresses to make sure that you don't get lost when you're trying to find your way around the city. If you're ordering pizza from Pizza Hut in Mongolia, they were a very early adopter of What 3 Words. You can now give them 3 words and make sure that your pizza from Pizza Hut arrives hot and on time. And it's used all over. And so in Mongolia, people use Facebook a lot. And so KFC, for example, on their Facebook page, they're telling you where you can find fried chicken by giving you 3-word addresses. I think they've got it in both English and in Mongolian, so both for tourists and locals. It's used all over in all kinds of ways. And we've actually got an incredible team out in Mongolia, a team of 3 people who are Mongolians who are working with us to build this out. And what we've seen is people are even putting these signs on their shop windows. And if you go to Ulaanbaatar, you can see every bus stop in Ulaanbaatar has a 3-word address in English and in Mongolian. So we've been doing this. It's been a real adventure for us. And it's not just about places like Mongolia. This is being used all over the world in all kinds of ways. We're just opening up an office in South Africa. And one of the projects that we've seen there was through an NGO. And about, I guess, a year ago, I got a phone call from an incredible doctor. And he started the phone call by saying, "Claire, I have a real problem with maternal mortality. Women are dying because I cannot find them." And he said, "I cannot find them because they are phoning me, and bearing in mind, minutes matter when you're giving birth and you need a doctor to come to you, minutes matter." And he says, "I cannot get to them in time." And so what he has been doing is he has been visiting homes and giving them 3-word addresses. So I just wanted to show you what that looks like. So what it looks like when you get an address for the first time.
If you've got a problem, you're sick, you phone for the ambulance. It takes time to come. Maybe you phone from 8 in the morning, then it's going to come late at 6 o'clock. But now I think it's going to be easy for them.
As we work as an EMRS, we don't have actually the boundaries. So we work the whole of Devon. It's very difficult because firstly, they don't have road names written, and they also don't have house numbers.
this new system, it looks like it's going to be very easy for these emergency services to locate wherever the problem is, because it's precise. Once a location, a 3 meter by 3 meter location is given a name, then the authorities can go straight to that base. So it's going to make life very easy for the community around the township.
The system of 1-3 words is going to make our life so easy that we can get to these people in time. It's not going to be only me feel good. All of our public will feel good about it.
So that's what happens when you get an address. So you can genuinely tell people when you need to where you are, and you can help them find you. So this is a system that's being used if you want to find a gallery in Paris that is both called and found at tables, empty workshops. You can make sure that you always find the right place. Whether you're driving your Mercedes to an Airbnb in Spain, you can know you'll end up at the exact door that you need to go. And today, the title of my talk was villas.lions.lizard. That's the entrance to the Festhalle here. So I could tell you to meet me at villas.lions.lizard, and that's the only place in the world that you could end up. So the idea with What 3 Words was simply that we thought addresses were broken, we wanted to fix them, and now every place in the world, everything in the world, and more importantly, every person in the world has an address. So that's What 3 Words.
Amazing. Amazing. So inspiring, Claire. So, hopefully, you've been firing your questions in for Claire. I've got about 1,000, if none of you have. We're going to get them popped up on the screen, and let's hit them. All right, let's take it from the top. Okay, we have Anonymous, which I think is a German name, who's asked the question, the top question there, sand, sand, sand. What would you call the spot in the Sahara Desert? And what would you name the place next to it? Great question.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the words actually don't have any relation to the place. So they're definitely random, which I can prove because my front door is at Slug Vines Bucket. So my house certainly doesn't have any slugs in it. So the words have no meaning. So sand, sand, sand would not be an address in the Sahara Desert, or it may be, but it would be an accident. It certainly wouldn't be on purpose. But every one of those squares is unique. And if you look at the squares, so for example, say a spot in the desert is apple, banana, spoon, the square next to it will be a totally different square with a totally different address. So apple, banana, and spoon won't appear in that square because we wanted to just make similar combinations really, really far apart. So instead of having sand, sand, sand next to sand, sand, tomato, you actually have totally different addresses so that we can error detect when you make a mistake. And
I think right now we are all in Villa Lions Lizard here in the Halle, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Another question. So many interesting questions, but I think how much of the planet has been covered already?
The whole planet, including the sea. So there are 57 trillion of these squares, and that is basically a grid that wraps around the entire world. If you want to go to Alaska, it's got an address. If you want to meet someone on a yacht in the middle of the sea, that square has a 3-word address. So it's all done, the whole thing.
Great question. All right, I live in a flat, so this is a question that I would have asked. So let's say your address is flat number 1, Hopetown Crescent. I don't know who that is here. Visitor from Edinburgh, hello. So how does that appear differently to flat number 4 in the same building?
It's relatively straightforward. You would put, for example, my flat with Slug Vines Bucket. I might put flat 7, Slug Vines Bucket. There you go, that's how you do it. So the idea is that it tries to get you to the front door. So this is an addressing system based on GPS coordinates, which are flat, so there's no elevation, so you don't use it for levels. If you want to use it for a level, you'd give me the front door. So you'd say, Claire, come to Slug Vines Bucket. I'm standing at the door. I ring the doorbell for flat 7. I come inside and I go up in the elevator to flat 7. So flat 7, Slug Vines Bucket.
Fantastic. All right. There are two questions here on a similar theme. What is the business model? How do you earn money? I'm sure this is a question you get asked all the time.
It's a great question. So the model for us is basically a doing good through doing business model. So the app is free, and it will always be free, and that's really important to us because it means if you live in a slum or a refugee camp, as long as somebody can get you that address, you can use it, and it's really important that it's always free for people to discover. We then make money when we license our code. So if you're an e-commerce checkout page and you want people to be able to type in 3-word addresses and you want to know where those are, you can use our code, which is an API or an SDK. So they're little pieces of code. You can build that in. Similarly, if you build it into your car, we give them a piece of code which works totally offline and it sits inside the car. And when you type in apple, banana, spoon, and that turns it into a GPS coordinate, that's using our code. So it's a license model.
Fantastic. There's a question here that's really interesting, which is about privacy. How do you manage information? How do you think about data privacy? We've just had someone in the audience give us their address in Edinburgh, so some people are more relaxed about privacy maybe, but how do you think about it as a company?
So actually, the information that we get is these 3 words were turned into this GPS coordinate, or this GPS coordinate was turned into 3 words. That's the data that we get. So we're not interested in collecting personal data from people and selling it or do anything else. And when we work, for example, with the UN or with governments who really, really care about security, what we do is we give them ways to host the data, the code locally, so they can use it on their own servers and make sure that none of that data goes anywhere else. So our interest is absolutely not in collecting or selling that data. All we do is turn 3-word addresses into coordinates or coordinates into 3-word addresses.
Fair enough. Question, we're going to rattle through these. Will you ever run out of words?
It's a great question. Basically, we've done the whole world already, and essentially what you need is a list of 40,000 words. 40,000 words actually gives you 64 trillion combinations. We only need 57 trillion. So you definitely don't run out of words. In other languages, we haven't actually done the C. So we only did the C in English. And so in other languages, you only need 25,000 words. And all the languages we've done so far and all the languages we're working on, you can get a very nice list of 25,000 words with swear words taken out and words like colour and colour, which are spelt 2 different ways, taken out. So yes, it's quite a challenge. And our languages team have a lot of fun every time we launch a new language. But yeah, so far we've never run out of words in any language.
Fair enough. Really, really interesting question from Clara. Where's Clara? Hi, Clara. Which is about how does What 3 Words work with local governments? You know, a big part, I know, of your agenda.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think land registry is really important, and it's certainly something where if you don't have a land registry and a property database and things like that, it can be very hard to enforce rights. So we've seen this certainly in developing countries where people's land is being taken away from them because there's not an identification system for that land. Because our system is really a piece of code, you can build it in. So if you're a government of a developing country, or a government of any country, in fact, you can just build this code into your existing system. So, for example, we used in national maps around the world. So Mali recently updated its national map, and in that national map, which is hosted online, they put 3-word addresses in. So you can both search for 3-word addresses, and when you click a point, it shows you the 3-word address. So this is a really valuable way of basically communicating those addresses. Because often what you'll find is that in a land registry system, you might have collected all the geographical information, but you have no way to communicate to the person who lives there that this is the name of their place. And that's where What 3 Words comes in. It's basically a way of communicating to the person who owns that land that that's a way they can talk about it, and they can use that when they're talking back to you. So when they're putting a claim in to say, this is my land, it cannot be taken away from me. Does that answer your question?
Tap something in. We've got a few more minutes, so please keep the questions coming. Claire's going to rattle through them in an amazing way. Question from Dirk. Where's Dirk? Hi, Dirk. Can you choose your address? I want to know what 3 words Dirk would choose, but we maybe need a microphone for that. Can you choose?
You actually can't. So they're already assigned. They're pre-assigned. So you can't choose them. And that's because we've created it so that the words are distributed intelligently to allow error detection. So you can't change them. And also part of that is that we needed it to work offline. So you can't change the addresses. They need to basically stay the same. So once they've been distributed by the algorithm, they stay the same and they never change. Certainly what you can do is go in the app, find your front door. I mean, for my front door, there are probably 4 or 5 squares I could choose from that would still get you to the right place. So you can choose the one you like the best.
Okay, there's a question here from Anonymous, which I definitely was going to ask, which is, are there any addresses, Claire, that stick in your mind as being especially funny or rude? I don't know.
Well, we've taken out the especially rude ones. So we've taken out swear words and things like that. But no, I mean, there are some great ones. For me, I love literature, so I enjoy the fact that Never Never Land is in Essex in the UK. I also enjoy the fact that somebody gets to live at party, party, party. So, of course, I mean, there are 57 trillion combinations. There are some pretty good ones out there.
Party, party, party. That's the address we all want, isn't it? All right. Another question from Anonymous, who's been very busy this morning. What's been your biggest challenge so far, Claire?
It's a great question. I think we're basically trying to create a global system. So that's a pretty big challenge because geographically, I mean, we're a small team. We're still only, there's about 40 of us. There are about 40 of us across our 3 different countries. So London in the UK, Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, and recently Joburg in South Africa. So we're still a really small team. So a big challenge for us is making a global addressing system with a small team. And then the other big thing is that we're trying to create a kind of movement. So we're trying to create a global addressing system which has never been done before. And so helping people understand how they can use it and helping get them to share it has been a challenge. But certainly the last year it's been a pretty exciting adventure, and things have happened quite fast.
Fair enough. It is so exciting. I mean, this movement is real. Another question from Anonymous, clearly thinking a bit more technically. Do you have an API enabling people to build on What 3 Words?
Yes. You can go on our website right now and get the API and build anything you like with it and have some fun. So we have a developer API, so if you're building an app, you can do it. And to be honest, I took a lot of credit, well, we took a lot of credit for a lot of amazing things people were doing there, but in all honesty, it's other people. So people take our code, they build it in. So whether that's Pizza Hut, whether it's the disaster response app, whether it's, you know, organizations doing it, helping with hurricane recovery, mostly that's other people building things with our code. We basically provide them with the code, and they do all the hard work and make all the incredible things happen.
Amazing. There's a lovely question from Carolina. Where's Carolina? Great question, Carolina. What's the most important and meaningful part of your work for you personally, Claire?
That's a really great question. I think for me, it's the reason I put the Gateway video in there is because I actually used to work in women's health and working with vulnerable women actually in the UK. And so for me, the chance for an address to help marginalised people who are off the grid, off the map, who maybe are not legally recognised, it has been pretty incredible. So for me, it's when those NGOs come to us, because often it's them coming to us and they say, hey, can you help us? Can you train us? That's incredible. And so, for example, late last year, just before the Haitian hurricane, we did a webinar that was just meant to train NGOs and helping them use the free app so they knew what to do. And I think a couple of hours after the webinar, I got an email from someone who had been on it, and he said, hi, Claire, just to let you know, we're shipping out to Haiti to do hurricane recovery work. We're going to use What 3 Words? And I said, that's amazing. Let me know if you need help. I didn't hear from him for a few weeks, and I didn't want to interfere because he's probably a bit busy. When he got back, he sent me an email, and it said, hi, Claire, I just thought you might like to see. And he'd sent this kind of, just loads of photos. And he said, we converted our entire team to using 3-word addresses. We used it to talk to our command in HQ back in the US. And everybody used it. And here's the 3-word address of the water pump that we installed and the place where we distributed 800 cholera vaccinations. And that, for me, was absolutely amazing, because this was literally just somebody taking an app, which is out there on the App Store right now, going into the world and doing something incredible that we could never have imagined with it.
So cool. There was a question that popped up briefly on the screen from, I think it was Felix or Felix, which was, why did you choose to partner with Mercedes? Which is such exciting news. How did that come about, and why did you choose to do it?
So we've been working with them for a while, and actually we were part of a program called Startup Autobahn as well. So that's a program that where you've got big corporates who want to work effectively with startups and scale up. So we're a growing company, and we were able to kind of spend some time actually with the team there, including actually Dieter Zetscher, and think about what this would look like for Daimler and what it would look like for What 3 Words in a real way. So we had about 100 days to kind of build and launch a product. And for us, I mean, if you're here at ER, you can go and see a demo of what it looks like in a Mercedes. But a big thing, I mean, the question why here is a great question, because for us, it's not just about Mercedes. It's also about the fact that Daimler as a company, they're a leader, they're known for innovation. We knew that when they decided to partner with us, it would not just be a flash in the pan, an exciting press story that everyone talks about how exciting it is that Mercedes are creating a self-driving car. We knew they were actually going to work with us, and they do things like logistics. So they have vans, they have trucks, they're looking more and more at autonomy and drones and things like this. So for us, it was a fascinating experience of being a relatively small company working with a very established one. And actually, it was a really effective collaboration that ended up with something launched within a very short period of time.
It's very cool. It says a lot about Mercedes as well as what 3 words that could happen so quickly. A couple of last final questions. A question that's just popped up from Anonymous. Are you working with the German government at all to change on the system here in Germany?
Not at the moment. So actually, a lot of people use us in Germany themselves. So sometimes there are lots of ways you can use it that don't need the government. So you can send it to someone when you're ordering something online. And we're working with Deutsche Bahn, who actually invested in us. So Deutsche Bahn invested in us earlier this year. So we're very excited by the potential in Germany, and we love how much people in Germany use what 3 words. But yeah, nothing yet with the government in Germany.
Well, who knows? There could be someone in the audience that changes all that. Okay, one final question. So many good ones to choose from. I'm going to go with the top question, which is what happens when there's no data network in remote areas, and how do partners grapple with that?
So because this is based on GPS, you don't need data, you don't need internet to use GPS. So if you're in a rural area, you can still use what 3 words totally offline. Because all it does is it takes GPS coordinates and turn them into words. Because it's an algorithm, it's actually not a database. To host a database would be very complex, 57 trillion combinations just in English. So instead, it's an algorithm, so it's tiny. It's about 12 megabytes for the whole world in English. You can host that locally on your phone or in your car or anything else in your drone. And that works offline anywhere in the world.
Brilliant. Hey, give it up, please, for Clare Jones and what 3 words.